What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host, Caleb. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons. Newsome, you rock. Now, let's get into today's Deck Tech with Skullbriar. And guys, this is the weekly voted patron Deck Tech. So again, if you want to become a part of that vote, link to the patrons in the description down below. Now, let's get into this Deck Tech. At first, I was kind of uninterested in this guy because it kind of just seems like slowly gets bigger and then eventually kills somebody. But that's not what this deck is at all. We're going to get this guy massive and sacrifice him over and over again to our greater good effects. We can generate a ton of treasure tokens with Ruthless Technomancer, a ton of card advantage with our greater good effects. Additionally, we have Altar of the Wretched that's just going to be amazing in this deck as well. And when we're not doing that, we're using stuff like Ozolith or Rayhan to go ahead and keep all of our counters. That way, whenever we reanimate our commander, we can move those counters over to him, just making him bigger, effectively doubling his power every single turn. And as long as we have a plethora of reanimation spells, we can keep doing that, keep reanimating him, keep doubling his power, and eventually he's just going to kill everybody with something like a Gerard Gilgari Lichlord effect, or we can go ahead and tend the pests and just generate a massive board state instantly. There again, there's a lot of ways to end out the game with this deck, and he generates a ton of value. This commander is, in one word, inevitable, and it will get to where it wants to be at some point in the game. So with that being said, let's get into today's deck tech. After a word from our sponsors, into the AM. Guys, these shirts are amazing. This is just a company that wants you to look good and feel good at the same time, and that exactly describes how I feel when wearing these shirts. They taper at the sleeve, they fit me perfectly, and they're super comfortable. You don't feel the logo on the inside, and the logos just look amazing. These graphic tees have awesome graphics, and I'm honestly just obsessed with them. So I'm happy to announce my audience is going to get a 10% discount when using code DECKTECH. So now you can start replacing your wardrobe as well with shirts that make you feel good and look good at the same time. Again, thank you Into the AM for being today's video sponsor. The first thing we have to do is get this guy massive. The Ozolith is going to be perfect for this because we can actually add a total of 4 counters to him per turn as long as we're connecting with that combat damage and activating the Ozolith's ability. Fight Rigging is going to give us some solid card advantage while additionally putting some more counters on him. Bone Sabers is just going to give him 4 counters a turn, which is insane, and then if he connects, you're giving a total of 5 power per turn. That gets out of control very quickly. Gearhulk and Increased Savagery are just going to straight up shove 4 to 5 counters on the guy. We can also flash back Increased Savagery for an insane 10 counters on the guy. That's going to be a total of 15 counters with 1 card. Yeah, that's going to get you there. We can use Visions of Dominance. This one's also pretty crazy. It adds a ton of counters to him and then doubles the number of counters, and it can also be flashed back. Colonian Hydra is just going to double those counters every turn, and Colonian Hydra gets big by itself. Invigorating Surge puts a counter on it and then doubles the counters. Very solid. Fractal Harness just doubles every turn as well. We have Clamavis. Now this basically doubles his power. It's just going to give him +1/+1 for each 1/1 counter on him. So again, yeah, basically doubling our power there. Belt of Giant Strength. Now this can very easily be free to equip because again, our commander gets massive very fast, and then he's just going to have base power 10 instead of 1, which can just win you the game outright. Slippery Bogbonder is going to give him hexproof and move all of our counters from a different creature, such as maybe a Colonian Hydra or a Rayhan, back onto our commander, which can be insane. Rayhan, the last of the Abzan, and the Ozolith are also going to be very crucial cards in this deck. Half of the deck wants to sacrifice him, reanimate him, sacrifice him, reanimate him, so the fact that the Ozolith and Rayhan can keep those counters and essentially double his power every turn is going to be massive. Let's talk about the sacrifice payoffs in this deck. Greater Good is insane, probably one of the best cards in the deck. It can flat draw your library in the right scenario. Mask of Grizzlebrand not only gives our commander a little bit of evasion and a little bit of lifelink, additionally, whenever we sacrifice him, we're going to draw a ton of cards and lose a little bit of life, right? Shadowheart Dark Justicator, this one's also amazing. Just sits on the battlefield, sacrifices our commander, and we're going to draw a ton of cards. Life's Legacy, Momentous Fall do exactly the same thing. Altar of the Wretched, this is also going to draw us cards and mill us, which mill is not the worst in this deck since we have so much recursion. Ghoulcaller Gisa and Tin the Pest can turn our massive commander into a massive board state instantly. Ruthless Technomancer is just a solid card that's going to net us a ton of treasure tokens and can also reanimate some creatures. Probably not our commander because his power is going to be massive, but again, all of our other creatures, Ruthless Technomancer can reanimate easily. The Skullspore Nexus is not only going to double our commander's power, but additionally, whenever we sacrifice our massive commander, we get a massive dinosaur in its place. Gerard Golgari Lichlord. Now, this is one of the ways the deck just wins. If you have a 40 power commander, you just sacrifice it and deal 40 damage to all of your opponents. Altar of Dementia, again, mill's not the worst thing in this deck, and we definitely want a sack outlet on the battlefield almost at all times, just in case our opponents try to bounce our commander back to our hand, because then we will lose all of those precious counters. Tevesh Szat is pretty solid in this deck as well, drawing us 3 cards instead of 2 since we're sacrificing our commander, and additionally, we'll take the Thrall tokens as chump blockers if we need to. Return of the Wildspeaker and Rishkar's Expertise gives us a way to draw cards without sacrificing our commander. Selvala Heart of the Wilds is actually sneaky good in this deck. Since our commander is going to be massive and the whole goal of the deck is to sacrifice the commander for value and reanimate him, he's going to be constantly in and out of the graveyard re-entering the battlefield. So he's going to trigger Selvala's card advantage ability, honestly, quite a bit. And then additionally, she just taps for a ton of mana. Moving on to the core of the deck, we have Old One-Eye and Kodama of the West Tree just for some solid trample enablers while ramping us, and also we do get 11 power from Old One-Eye, so he works well with the Power Matter synergies, especially since we can recur him from the graveyard pretty easily. Guardian Projects and the Great Hinge kind of just do what the deck wants to do. Again, this does trigger on ETB, not cast, so it'll trigger whenever our commander is going in and out of the graveyard. Additionally, Greater Good does put another counter on our commander, which we are very happy to see. Cut the Profits is another solid way to draw a ton of cards in the early game since we can just sack our commander to it. Azuri's Predation, because this deck is going to be a little weak to those go wide strategies, so anytime you can shove Azuri's Predation in a deck and just hose over the token player, I say go for it. After our commander ends up in the graveyard, we need to reanimate him. Tyvar is going to be perfect for this because of that -2 ability. It also does help being able to activate our tap ability creatures at instant speed. We run a lot of Elves, Selvala Heart of the Wilds, Ghoulcaller Gisa. We want to be able to activate those abilities as soon as they enter the battlefield. Sheoldred and Marin are going to fit perfectly in this deck, allowing us to reanimate our commander once per turn very consistently. Feign Death, Undying Malice, and Malakir Rebirth are also going to be really solid in this deck. All we have to do is cast this on our commander, sacrifice him, and boom, he just comes back onto the battlefield with an additional counter sometimes as well. Call of the Death Dweller not only reanimates 2 things, but additionally, we get to put 2 counters on our commander in the form of Death Touch and Menace. Now our opponents are losing 2 creatures instead of just 1 whenever they attempt to chump block us. Reanimate, Animate Dead, and Unearth are also very solid cards that just reanimate our commander very easily. From there, we have some cards that return cards from our graveyard to our hand. Notably, don't use this on your commander because that will negate his counters, but this is very solid in the deck since we can mill quite a bit of cards. Moving on to ramp, pretty simple. We have Shigeki. This guy's amazing. You get a mill and ramp at the same time, and then you can return a key piece from your graveyard to your hand. All of the rest of the ramp is 1 CMC Dorks, because if you really think about the play pattern, our commander's 2 mana, so every single game, turn 2, we're most likely going to be playing our commander. So having something like a Nature's Lore, turn 2, feels bad because you're just casting your commander. In short, turn 2 ramp is too slow in this deck, so the mana dorks are going to be perfect. Moving on to removal, we have Go for the Throat and Nature's Claim, just very efficient removal. Beast Within, Terror Sunder, and Assassin's Trophy can get rid of any permanent on the battlefield, so they're very flexible. Uvenwald Tracker is going to be amazing repeatable removal since our commander is just so massive. Bane of Progress, also super solid, hosing over those artifact and enchantment strategies. Last but not least, we have Mandate of Abaddon. Our commander is going to be massive, so in the late game, this is going to very easily be a one-sided board wipe that can get rid of all of our opponent's chump blockers and cause them to lose the game to a 21-21 Skullbriar. Let's get into today's playtest. Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with this deck and how much fun it is to just sack this guy, reanimate him, and do it over and over again. We've got a 2 lands with the Soul Ring, Knight's Whisper, card advantage, fight rate. Yeah, we're taking this 100%. We'll go here, run out the Soul Ring, next turn. you always just go ahead and run out the commander. We draw into Greater Good. Okay, this looks forced right here. Let's add a counter, 2 power. Next turn, the odds that someone has a blocker on turn 2, honestly not super high. Now, our first decision, let's see. Soul Ring, I think what we're going to do is we're going to use some on the Ozolith, and then we will fire off Knight's Whisper with the other floating one to hopefully draw into a land. Boom, we got that land. And then we can run out an elf, attack again, and now because of Ozolith, we're going to add 2 counters onto our guy. Turn 3, he's already 4 power. We're doing exactly what we want to do. We've got some reanimation. We've got Rayhan. Okay, so let's play out Rayhan. I really like Rayhan here. And then 1, 2, we still have 1 floating from the Soul Ring. 3, I think we'll fight rigging. Let's see what we hide away. 3, 4, 5. I think altar. Altar's the way. Is it? You draw, you mill. Slippery Bog Bonder can just make him even more massive. Let's go. We already have Greater Good. We don't need the altar. So let's go with Slippery Bog Bonder. And let's bottom all of these. Okay, cool. And then, oh, sorry, this guy will enter with, or girl will enter with 3 counters. Cool. All right. Then fight rigging triggers at the beginning of your, put a 1/1 counter. So we'll put 2 counters here. Swing in and put 2 more counters on them. What we really need to look for is something like a trample to ensure that we are going to connect. Because right now I'm just kind of guessing. And he is easily chumpable. But it is turn 4, so there is a very good possibility turn 4 someone doesn't have anything on the battlefield. So let's go to our next turn, especially if there's a control deck at the table. Ooh, Tevish Sot. Do we Tevish Sot or do we just Greater Good? We're going to get our fight rating trigger. Okay. We have options. Okay, let's just try to make them as big as possible. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to... We need lands too. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, let's just do 4. Let's get... Sorry. 1, 2, yeah, 3, 4. Let's get Greater Good on the battlefield and let's just draw 8 cards. Yeah, and then hopefully we draw into a land and then we can go ahead and get the Call of the Death. And then when this dies, we're going to put 7 counters on Rayhan. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that'll make it 8 because of the Ozolith. So this guy has 11 counters on him. And then we are going to draw 8 cards. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we do draw into our land that we need. And then we can return up to 2 target creatures. I only have 1 creature in there. Oh, we can discard Shieldred here because we do have to discard 3 cards to Greater Good. Okay, all right, it's all coming together. And then we'll discard 2 lands. And then 1, 2, 3, we will animate. And then we will go ahead and grab a Shieldred and a Skullbriar. And the Skullbriar will have 7 counters, I do believe. 7. That makes him 8 power, so fight rigging will trigger on our combat, because remember, we haven't even gone to combat yet. Another thing about Call of the Death Dweller, I do believe we get 2 counters. Put a Death Touch counter on either of them and a Menace counter. So we can put a Death Touch and a Menace counter on him, which seems kind of solid to me. So we have Death Touch on him now and Menace. So they have to you lose 2 creatures if they don't want him to connect. Now, fight rigging will trigger. We'll put 2 counters on him. And then Slippery Bog Bonder will enter the battlefield. And we're going to move all but 1 of the counters from Rayhan onto Skullbriar. And he does get that Hexproof counter as well. Because enters the battlefield, Hexproof counter on target creature. Then move any number of counters from among creatures you control. Okay, yeah, so now we're going to move 11 counters onto the Skullbriar. So actually, probably 10, right? Yeah, well, 10, and then Ozolith will make it 11. So yeah. That's 20, so that does make him 21 power. Oops, sorry, 21 power. I do believe I mathed good there. If not, I apologize, but I do think he's at 21 power with Menace and Death Touch. So if someone has one blocker on turn 5, they are just dead. So that's cool. And we have the option to draw 20 cards with Greater Good, and we have a Reanimate in hand, so we can reanimate him. Everything's looking solid here. Another thing we can do is, in response to the upkeep trigger, sack Skullbriar, and then reanimate the Skullbriar with Shieldred. And since Skullbriar has haste, we can just keep doing that and getting a ton of value. So yeah, without further ado, we'll attack, and we'll say we kill someone turn 5. Sounds pretty good to me. Now let's go to our next turn, and we will do that thing where we sacrifice him and reanimate him. So we'll draw 21 cards. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then our card per turn. And then we have to discard 3. So we'll discard 1, 2, 3. Now, we really need, what we really want here is a way to end out the game. So something like a Gerard would be amazing. I don't think we have Gerard. That's sad. Well, I mean, honestly, we could sack him again and draw another 20 cards and then just reanimate him. Yeah, that sounds like what we're going to do. All right, next turn. Okay, cool. Everything on tap. This is our turn 6. Let's go ahead and just sack him again. Actually, you know what? I'm just realizing whenever we sacrificed him the first time, Rayhan would have gotten 21 counters. Wow. Oh, no. So 21 counters on Rayhan. Yeah, we sack him again, and that's going to put another 20 counters on Rayhan. So we can essentially, and 2 again from the Ozolith. So I think that's a 44 power creature. Okay, and then we sack him again, draw another 21 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, we'll discard these 3 cards, but it doesn't matter anymore because we drew into what we needed, which was Gerard. So we can easily go ahead and fire off this reanimate. That's going to bring Skullbriar back to the battlefield. And then we're going to fire off this 1, 2, 3, 4 mana Ruthless Technomancer, sacrificing Skullbriar again, netting us 21 treasure tokens. Then we can easily go ahead and play Gerard, sacrifice Rayhan, which is now actually got 20 more power on her. So now we just sacrifice Rayhan, deal 60 plus damage to the table, and we've won the game with Skullbriar. This card is absolutely insane, and that kind of just showcases what this deck can do when you draw into the pieces you need, and how easy it is to sacrifice him, reanimate him, sacrifice him, reanimate him, and really utilize that giant body for a ton of value. With that being said, I would like to thank my patrons, especially my high contributing ones, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad, Praetor. You guys are amazing. Really keep the channel going. If you want to become a patron and become a part of the weekly voted deck tech, link to the patron is in the description down below. With that being said, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.